Alright, welcome back to His Name Was Bob. We've only got a couple of chapters left. I'm using both of these microphones right now, so if the sound changes, it's because I switched to this, which is a dynamic microphone. It sounds a little bit different. And that's because this chapter has a lot of shouting in it, and the Blue Yeti here is a very good microphone. I like the way it sounds, but I tend to be really, really loud, and I'll often clip the sound on it. I could have, fixed my hair and gotten out of my pajamas, but I feel like I'm rocking that quarantine vibe today, so, it's almost noon. I just got out of bed. You know how it is. Anyway, let's get on to some angst. His Name Was Bob by Llewellyn. Chapter 38, Pigeon. Your point of view. Everyone had just left. No sooner had you closed the door than Bob teleported over to the counter, fuming but silent for the moment. You took some deep breaths, trying not to lash out yourself. First, he tries to run away without telling you, potentially putting his life in jeopardy. And now, yet again, he was jumping at the chance to put his life in jeopardy. And for what? You already had a plan. A good one. To keep you both safe. Why wouldn't he just see reason? Would there be any way you all could just have a civil conversation about this and make him see reason? Bob, you started as calmly as you could. You can't just...
Since when do you control what I can and can't do? Or was the whole we're equals thing you've been on some kind of...
Sorry.
Or was the whole we're equals thing you've been on about a bunch of bullshit? So I really am just some possession of yours?
You gritted your teeth. No, you wouldn't rise to the bait. You were going to have a calm conversation about this. You were going to make him see why this new plan of his was a bad idea. This wasn't happening. You know that's not true. That's not what this is about at all. This is about you risking your life for no reason. You can't...
Can't I?
He shouted, cutting you off.
Do you think I just made this kind of decision out of the...
Bob, this is a bad idea. What we need to do is leave and just...
Just what? Be miserable? Always looking over our shoulders? Let you fall apart? Look at you, you're a wreck. You haven't been sleeping, you haven't been eating, and you're trying to ditch the one family you have. What kind of guy would I be if I just let you...
Bob stopped as he noticed you look away, trembling. Great, just what you wanted to do. Get all emotional as you calmly tried to convince him not to go through with something that would likely kill him. You had to make him understand. You couldn't lose him.
Listen,
he continued more softly.
I meant what I've been saying all along. I love you. I love you. And I know you don't want to hear that. I know I can't ever be anything but trouble for you. I know I can't give you a future. Look at me.
He held his arms out, laughing bitterly.
Even the idea. It's ridiculous. I know it. I can't do anything. I can't be... The best thing for me to do, the best thing I could do for you, is leave. Give you a chance at a normal life. A life free of having to worry about something like me. Best thing to do, best thing would be to turn myself in.
No!
I'm not saying that's what I'm doing, damn it. I'm a coward,
he yelled, hastily wiping at one of his eye sockets. He took a breath and lowered his voice again.
I've always been a coward. That's why my best friend, Growly, I'm a selfish coward.
How can you even say that? What about when you rescued Indy? When you stood up to my dad? Those guards at the haunt? You're not a coward. And now, because of one incident, you just think you deserve to be... You think your life is worthless? That you deserve to just turn yourself in?
No, I said I wasn't going to turn myself in. I won't turn myself in to be dusted. But next best thing I can do is get this damn chip out of my head and have you give it to Utigen so they leave everyone the hell alone. At least let me have that. Let me, for once, do something right. If there's a chance. Please.
What about what I want? Have you ever once even considered what I want? How I feel? You were shaking.
That's what I've been trying.
You know I can't lose you. I can't. Have you never thought about why? Do you really not get it? Maybe I love you too, you stupid asshole. Maybe that's why. Well, that shut him up. And for once, he had no retort except to stand there, frozen, eyes wide and mouth hanging comically open. There, damn it. There it was. Out there. That's what he wanted, right? You slumped down in a chair, hiding your burning face in your arms. You were sure you felt it, if you could feel love. Were you capable? Damn it. Whatever you were feeling, if it was love, if you could feel love, it was definitely for him. Eventually, Bob teleported over, sitting back against your elbow, leaning his skull back against you. Why did he feel somewhat cold? You said nothing else. Neither of you said anything else. Seemed there was nothing more to say at the moment. Dustin's point of view. Friday. He was fucked. Dustin checked his phone again, knowing there would be nothing. Not this late at night. No message notification. Yeah, he was royally fucked. And not in the good way. Nope, he was fucked as in his ass was going to get fired sort of way. In the way that he was going to lose everything he worked for. All because of one stupid mistake. And it would all happen by Friday. 4 days. He smacked his head on his desk again, earning a small yelp from Spot. He'd tried everything. Threats, pleas. He'd given the edgy thief, his new pet name for one of the ones responsible for ruining his life, a deadline of 48 hours, Wednesday, trying to give himself extra leeway. Hell, in a last desperate attempt, he'd even offered to pay the thief for the damn biddy they stole, if they'd just return it. But they still hadn't contacted him. He somehow doubted they would. Damn it. Was that thing really worth that much to them? What the hell could he say or do to make them part with it? God, the last several days had been awful. He'd been yelled at by his boss again for lack of results. Been told he'd be fired by Friday if he still could not produce that microchip. And to top it all off, he'd been witness to that cute barista he'd been trying to work up the nerve to ask out, showing off her shiny new engagement ring to a coworker. The only silver lining to this whole week was knowing that his boss would also be royally fucked once Dustin was gone. Ha! The USDA was not gonna be happy when they learned that a biddy escaped from his plant. Hell, it might bring down the whole company. Though, that wouldn't exactly be a resume builder for Dustin. This is Dustin's resume. 20XX to 20XX Utigen middle management. Supervised and trained new employees, oversaw special projects in recall division, brought the entire company down through fabrication of paperwork under boss's direction. Yeah, he's sure any company he applied for would want to hire him on the spot. His phone buzzed on the table, startling him out of his contemplations. He snatched it up, almost knocking Spot off the desk. What was his voice? What was his voice? I can't remember. What does an evil henchman employee voice sound like? Yes? Hello?
Alright, listen up,
said a gruff voice on the other end.
You want your missing microchip, right?
Who is this? That didn't sound like the voice of the person Dustin had spoken to before. He checked the number. It was their number.
You don't get to ask questions, you soggy pigeon armpit. I know you want your missing microchip back, and I know you're in deep shit if you don't get it back. So you're gonna listen to me and do what I say. Got it?
What the fuck? Do pigeons even have armpits? But more importantly, whoever this was, they seemed to know his situation and may be able to help him. Did he really have a choice but to listen? Okay.
You'll get your chip back 48 hours from now. But just the microchip, not the bitty. You'll show up at the diner on 5th and Church Street, 3 p.m. on Wednesday. A bitty will deliver the chip to you. You'll take it and go. You won't ask questions. You won't ever contact the person you've been harassing the last several days again. Got it?
A bitty will deliver the chip? Who the hell was he talking to? It couldn't be... Are you a bitty?
I said no questions, the voice yelled. Wednesday, 3 p.m. That's all.
There was a click and the call ended. Dustin sat for a bit with the phone still held to his ear. That couldn't have been the edgy bitty he'd been looking for? No, someone was playing a joke on him. Biddies weren't that smart. If whoever it was turned out to have the microchip, he didn't care who was on the other end of the line, who delivered it, or how they got it. He'd make sure he snuck a scanner out of the office to check the microchip delivered to him, make sure it was the actual microchip he was looking for. Maybe things were looking up after all. Either way, this was the only glimmer of hope he'd had in weeks. He was willing to take a chance on it. Bob's point of view. Holy shit, that was nerve-wracking. He sat by the phone, just breathing and waiting for the trembling to subside. Well, he was pretty sure that went about as well as he hoped it did. It had taken him almost an hour after you had fallen asleep to come up with what he was going to say. With what he was gonna say. It wasn't exactly an easy feat calling the guy that wanted him dead. But it was done. His plan was now in motion. As quietly as he could, Bob dragged the phone back through his door inside the house. You were pretty much out cold in your room, but he hadn't wanted to take the chance of you hearing the conversation. All that was left was to get that doctor to try getting the chip out of his head. He doubted the doc would say no. Why would he? Either Bob survived, or he didn't. Either way, that doc got to keep you. Heh, maybe Bob was crazy trusting a guy like that with his life. He probably still didn't even consider Bob to be alive. Still, he was his only chance. And Bob would take that chance for the person that said they loved him. You and Bob hadn't talked much after that. Hell, you barely stayed awake after you all's discussion. Bob knew you probably didn't mean what you said, but you said it anyway to try to make him happy. Probably to try to keep him from doing what he was planning on doing. Sure, you cared for him. He could admit that. It was obvious. But not like in a romantic love sort of way. How could you? But you said what you said, even if it wasn't real. Bob could pretend it was, for now, and that was enough. Even without that, it was worth it taking a chance. You were worth it. There's people gardening outside now. There's a leaf blower, so that'll cut it for today. Just kidding, I thought about it, and 13 minutes isn't really long enough, so we're back. My hair is a little neater, and I'm ready to record chapter 39, which is empty. I've got my dog in my lap, and the webcam is nice and askew. Just the way professionals do it. Oh, Maxie? He says this is a very professional operation. There we go. Okay. Alright, that works. He's stuck his head. Don't make snoring noises. Chapter 39. Empty. Tuesday. It was decided you'd go to work. You'd like to say you decided to go to work, but it seemed you really didn't have much say-so in the matter. Gary had shown up bright and early with breakfast, saying you ought to come in, just to get some normalcy and get your mind off badness or whatever. He insisted you needed to get out of the apartment. Besides, he hadn't had the chance to give you your last paycheck yet, and if you did decide to leave, he'd have nowhere to mail it. Then, before you could even answer, he smiled and said he was glad you decided to come into work and he'd see you there in a bit. and then bustled off to go pick up his husband and head to the hospital ahead of you. They are married! I've never been able to remember that. They are married. Okay. Bob had wholeheartedly agreed with the idea of you working today, even agreeing too quickly to stay home when you told him he couldn't come with you. He was being too agreeable. It wasn't like him. Though he'd been acting kind of not like himself since you confessed last night. You'd maybe been acting weird too. But you were tired. Just tired, much like my dog. They all wanted you to work. Fine. One more day. Then, maybe, hopefully, you could convince Bob to leave with you that night. Wasn't it better to leave at night anyway? Escaping under the cover of darkness and all that? Like spooky villains, or anti-heroes, or whatever. Maybe you two could get capes and ski masks? Did they make Bitty ski masks? Ugh, you were really tired. You really were tired. You thought about your dad, too. Yeah, he was toxic, but he had tried to help, hadn't he? According to Bob's letter, amongst other things he had written that you had filed away in your head under the category "to deal with later," Ray had tried to warn you about mutagen. Never mind he had been the cause of all this by kidnapping and trying to sell Bob in the first place. Still, you couldn't help but worry about him a little. What would you do? What would he do if you disappeared? Do you want to get down? I think you want to get down. Okay, fine. Would he look for you? Would he eventually end up dead, like you thought, and were a little afraid he might, and you would never know? Also, it was still very possible that Mutagen would eventually issue a massive recall of all biddies. You wished you didn't care about any of it, but you had given this whole thing a lot of thought. Any way you looked at it, leaving was the only way you could keep Bob safe. The rest of the scenarios, even the possible Biddy recall scenarios, were just that. Scenarios. Not definite. But if you didn't leave, Bob would most certainly eventually get taken and die. If he tried the surgery, he would most likely die as well. What choice did you really have? The wind caught your coat and made you shiver as you slammed the creaky door of your car, heading for the clinic. Leaves rustled and crunched around your feet. Out of the corner of your eye, you thought some leaves or a critter shot past your foot as you entered the building, but nothing was there. Sleeplessness can play some funny tricks on the eyes. The hospital had been busy with mostly routine things. A nail trim there, vaccine boosters there, refilling prescriptions, things like that. Luckily, it seemed to be one of those days where things finished up around lunchtime, so everyone was able to take their hour-long break. Dr. Rivera had retreated to his office, closing the door after saying something about not being disturbed due to a meeting. You guessed maybe he had an important phone call, since he was the only one in there? He was being more standoffish than usual, but you really couldn't blame him after what you'd almost done. What you were still planning on doing. At least you had gotten to say goodbye. You pulled out your phone again, checking for messages. Odd. Bob still hadn't responded to your text of hello. Yeah, kind of an oddly formal text for you, you supposed. Different from the usual sup asshole you usually sent. You'd actually hesitated, trying to figure out what to text him, and ended up with that after much hovering over the send button with your thumb. Hello. But everything else either sounded fake, or flirty, or too much like whatever you all were supposed to be now. God, you didn't even know. You didn't know where you two stood anymore. You'd been trying not to think about it, honestly. Figuring out the logistics of keeping your boyfriend? Friend? Loved one? Anyway, the logistics of keeping Bob alive were more important to you right now. Where you two stood could be figured out later. This didn't have to be weird. You didn't want things to be weird between the two of you. Why wasn't he answering your text? Had you hurt his feelings? Were you supposed to act differently around him now? Were you supposed to like, smooch him on the mouth or something when you left for work? Was it even possible to smooch a tiny skeleton? Jeez, was this even really what you should be thinking about right now? Definitely more important things to think about, to plan. What you needed to do was eat your lunch and then plan what your next move would be after work. You still liked the idea of leaving under the cover of darkness.
Are you just going to stare at your phone, or are you actually going to eat something?
You were startled out of your apparent blank staring at your lack of text notification to finally notice your coworker, Mary, was sitting across the break room table from you. Mary gave a small smile and took a bite out of her sandwich.
I know we don't talk much, she said. I heard from Gary you were thinking about leaving Country Hills, which would be unfortunate. And not just because I'd get stuck with more work. You seem nice enough. I would have liked to have gotten the chance to know you better.
She took another bite of sandwich, chewed thoughtfully, and swallowed.
Anyway, you seem to be undergoing some kind of crisis. Call it my weird mom instinct. Maybe you'd like to talk to someone who's not as closely involved with whatever you're going through?
Oh, thanks. I'm okay, you kind of stuttered. This was probably the most you had ever heard Mary say. She shrugged and continued eating her lunch.
Anyway,
she said over a mouthful of sandwich before swallowing,
I think it was not so nice giving such short notice. Gary seemed like he was going to cry this morning when he told me.
There was no other way. I have my reasons. I'm sorry. You looked over at Dr. Rivera's door. Mary hummed and continued eating her lunch. Seemed like a long phone meeting Dr. Rivera was on.
I mean, Mary continued, I'm not trying to add to your guilt or problems or anything. I guess I'm just trying to understand. You three, you, Gary, and Dr. Rivera, always seemed pretty tight. When I first started here, I thought you all were family. I admit, I've always felt like the odd woman out. Now, I'm not trying to guilt you, just, I guess coming from a mom perspective, I can't even imagine what it would be like to lose a kid. I don't want to. And I'm pretty sure they kind of consider you like that. Like their kid. Maybe just keep that in mind, whatever you decide. Keep in touch with them. Or better yet, let them help you.
You clenched your jaw, trying to figure out how you wanted to respond.
You don't have to say anything,
she said, as she brushed the crumbs from the table in front of her and stood.
I know it's really none of my business. I've got to go make some appointment confirmation calls. Good luck, whatever you decide.
Part of you was annoyed at this coworker you barely knew lecturing you. At the same time, you were grateful the guys still had someone at work who was willing to stick up for them, even if she didn't know the whole situation. She didn't know this was literally a life or death situation. She didn't know they couldn't help you. You let out a sigh and checked your phone again. No new text alert. In another world, it may have been nice getting to know Mary. You'd had her pegged wrong. She wasn't indifferent, just quiet. When she did talk, she seemed to be pretty straightforward, not too much with the sugarcoating, like Dr. Rivera. You could see why Gary hired her. Should you be worried that Bob wasn't answering your text? You didn't have time to worry. The rest of the day was slammed. You barely remembered who came in or what you had done. It was well after closing by the time you all had finished up. Mary had already left to go pick up her daughter. Again, you hadn't even given her a proper goodbye. Or really any at all. You had been in a room when she left. You again felt a twinge of guilt as you cleaned up. How long would it take them to find a replacement for you? Days like today, it felt like the clinic was short-staffed as it was. Would they be okay without you? Eventually. You had to keep Bob safe. Bob. You checked your phone. Shit, he still hadn't answered. Was he okay? Had something happened? How had you not checked your phone since lunch? You rushed to grab your things as Dr. Rivera came out of his office, clearing his throat. A word? I'm so sorry. I have to go. Bob is right here, Dr. Rivera finished, pointing to his office where said Biddy was sitting on his desk. Bob! You yelped, and then let out a sigh of relief, and then, confused, what the hell are you doing here?
Hitched a ride this morning,
he mumbled, staring down at the desk. You hitched a ride? Are you like Indy and Canary do? Please tell me you didn't do that.
Yes, well,
oh no. Yes, well, I'm sure you both will have plenty more to fight about besides this. Dr. Rivera came in, sitting at his desk near Bob and motioning to the other chair in the room. Have a seat. What is all of this about? You asked, sitting down warily. Bob approached me and asked if I would remove his microchip. Though this procedure has never been attempted on biddies, as far as I can tell, we came up with a plan. I believe it has a high chance of success, Dr. Rivera answered. Bob held up his hands as you opened your mouth to protest.
This is my decision to make. I can pay for this with my own earnings from the blog.
I'm not charging you, Dr. Rivera grumbled.
This is a transaction between me and the doc, Bob continued, and you have no say-so. I wasn't even gonna tell you till he made me.
Bob cut his eyes at Dr. Rivera, who pinched the bridge of his nose under his glasses. You clenched and unclenched your jaw and took a deep breath. And when exactly is this supposed transaction supposed to take place?
Tomorrow,
Bob answered. Tomorrow. Tomorrow? Your voice hitched. Bob seemed to lose a bit of his confidence.
Yeah, that's when I'm supposed to deliver the chip to that Utigen guy.
When you were supposed to deliver... You called him too? Right. Well, that's settled then. I'm sure you two have a lot to discuss. I will see you two bright and early tomorrow. Off you go. Dr. Rivera unceremoniously scooped Bob up and placed him in your hands and bustled you all out the door.
So,
Bob nervously broke the silence of the car ride. I don't even know what to say to you right now, you said as calmly as you could muster through clenched teeth.
Yeah, good call. Maybe we should just talk about it when we get home? Gripping the wheel kinda hard there.
Bob was sweating. He should be. He wasn't going to have to worry about Utigen much longer anyway. You were going to kill him. You told him so once you got inside the apartment.
Ha! Get in line.
He laughed humorlessly, hopping up on the back of the couch. You collapsed onto the couch, closing your eyes and rubbing your forehead. We're leaving tonight. I thought we already decided this.
No, you decided we were leaving. I came up with a better plan.
How is this a better plan, Bob? Besides the fact that you could die from this surgery, to put it bluntly, you know there isn't such a thing as Biddy anesthesia or Biddy pain medicine. You would be awake for the whole thing. Also, once your skull opened, you would start bleeding, leaking your actual soul, and it wouldn't stop until the chip is out and the hole is closed. And then what? After all that, you were planning on just hopping off the surgery table, waltzing over and delivering the chip to the Utigen guy yourself? Do you really think that's a good idea?
Well, I wasn't exactly planning on waltzing, no. But in a nutshell, yeah.
Bob sighed.
Yeah. Me and the doc talked about all that. He's been researching and came up with a time frame for him to remove it. And with proper restraints and that putty stuff.
No! Oh my god, I'm gonna be sick! You can't seriously be considering this! You put your hand over your mouth. You actually might be sick.
This is the only way! The only way I can save my own life and not put all other biddies' lives at risks. Not to mention I'm not gonna let you throw your life away.
My life? I can start over, easily. We are literally talking about you potentially throwing your own life away over something we don't even know for sure will happen.
If they don't get my chip back, there's gonna be a recall. You and I both know it.
You gritted your teeth, staring at the ceiling. How was he being so calm and sure about all this? There had to be another way, other than this. There just had to be. You couldn't let him do this.
It's my decision, and you know it. I get to choose what I do with my own life.
You sat up, at eye level with him now, as he sat on the back of the couch. You do realize what you're signing up for, right? Even assuming you survive. No one knows if you'll be permanently damaged from this. Remember how messed up you were when Ray took you? This is worse.
It won't be. You'll be there. Right?
You were silent. This... You just couldn't support something like this.
Right?
He repeated a little more quietly, giving you an uncertain look.
Please? I know it's a lot to ask, and I know it's your decision too, but...
Of course I'll be there! You cut him off. I don't agree with any of this. I don't want you to do this, but I'm not letting you do this alone. More silence. You lay with your arm over your face, trying not to break down. You knew he was right. It was his decision. Even if it was a really, really bad decision. But no way would you let him go through this alone. There had to be another way, though. If you could just think of something.
Thank you,
he said, breaking the silence, then cleared his throat.
I just want you to know I appreciate it. Everything. Even what you said last night, even if you just said it 'cause you think it's what I wanted to hear. And yeah, maybe I did want to hear it. I love you, you know this. And I just want you to know I'm happy with how things are. In case... yeah.
You both were quiet again as you tried to figure out how you wanted to voice your turbulent emotions. You took a breath and blew it out. I don't understand love. I feel like that's just a word, something people made up to control others or sell songs or greeting cards or whatever. I don't understand it. He nodded, not really looking at you. You continued. With you, though, I don't understand it either. I don't understand what I feel. I feel more like happy when you're around. Like a peaceful sort of happy. I don't know. Hell, even though I'm angry as fuck at you for going behind my back and just deciding to do something like this, at the same time, I guess I'm sort of... I don't know. I really don't think it's a good idea. I can't lose you. I need you. It's like that stupid cartoon we always watch, you know, where a few of the characters kind of live their lives fused as one being or something. I think I kind of get wanting to do something like that. Like Botiny. No, that sounds like plants. Ty Bob. Whatever. Kind of like that. I'm rambling. You chuckled awkwardly, wiping your nose. Sorry. I guess I mean, I prefer the me with us together. I feel like a different person when you're with me. Like, in a good way. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. Without you, it would just be empty. Like, everything you seemed be more empty. Wait, sorry. Like, everything before you seemed more empty, and I didn't even realize it until you were just there. And if I were to lose you, things would be more empty and cold than they even were before. Everything. I would just be missing. I don't understand love. I don't believe in it, but I do know that I need you. I want... Please don't do this. He blinked a few times, just staring at you, saying nothing, scrutinizing you with those little eyelights of his. You shifted uncomfortably, wiping your nose again. Your face, you were sure, was on fire. After a bit, he broke into a slow grin.
Heart fusion would be pretty hideous. ... Heh, like Skeletor.
You frowned at him. I don't think I'm quite muscly enough for that.
Who says you'd supply the muscles to our fusion?
He said, grinning and flexing dramatically.
You'd obviously supply the height and the voice.
You snorted, and then started hysterically laughing, to the point of tears. You buried your face into the sofa cushion, alternating between laughing or crying. You really weren't sure which anymore. Bob just sat there, patiently, patting your head until you finally stopped, face still buried in the cushion, catching your breath.
We good?
He asked, still patting your head. Yeah, you answered, wiping your eyes with the back of your hand and finally meeting his gaze. I still don't agree with your plan.
Yeah,
Bob said, resting his hand on your face.
But I'm still gonna go through with it.
I know. So good. So good. All right. That's the penultimate episode. Next part is the last part. I'm going to record it live on the Discord. So, link to that in the description. I'll say what the time is. If you join the Discord, you can tune in for that. That'll be up soon. Until then, goodbye.